find a couple of friends who are interested. Ask around, see if there's interest in whatever it is you would like to see happen for your child. But then just bumble your way through it. Just don't feel like you have to have it all figured out to get us started.
Hi, welcome to the Zan Tyler podcast. This podcast is brought to you by BJU Press Homeschool. Homeschooling is an exciting adventure we take with our children. One of the most challenging parts of this journey is choosing the curriculum you want to use. BJU Press Homeschool is a curriculum you can trust. All the books, resources, and videos have been designed with you and your child in mind. Their curriculum is educationally robust and rich, taking into account that children have different learning styles, strengths, and needs. Mom, you are in charge. BJU Press Homeschool is here to come alongside and support you. Do you need help with the teaching load, or is there a subject you just don't want to teach? Their amazing video courses are available for all grades and almost every subject. BJU Press Homeschool believes that homeschooling can produce a new generation of students who know God, love their neighbors, and stand firm in their faith. For more information, go to bjupresshomeschool.com. That's bjupresshomeschool.com. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zan Tyler podcast, where our goal is to help you thrive in your homeschool journey. Let me take just a minute to ask you to please subscribe to this podcast wherever you listen or watch, including YouTube. And if this podcast has been encouraging to you, please leave us a good review. Each review really helps us, and it helps other families like you connect with us. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram, where we also post a lot of great content there. So today, I am so excited to have my dear friend Janie Gibson with us. Janie and her husband Gene have 5 children and homeschooled for 24 years. She just graduated her last child. Janie has an amazing gift for recognizing the strengths and needs in her children and then creating opportunities to develop those strengths and passions, as well as finding solutions for their weaknesses or needs. So stay tuned. I think you are really going to be encouraged by today's podcast. Janie, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me, Zan.
It is such a pleasure. We met for the first time in Savannah, I think.
That's true. Many years ago, back in the day, I was a homeschool support group leader, and we used to bring in speakers twice a year in August to get our year kicked off for a great start, and then again about January when you needed a little homeschool vitamin B12 shot in your year.
Yes.
And we were blessed to get to have you come speak to us one year.
Yeah, so that was so much fun to meet you there. And who knew we would ever be living in the same state and then working together in the homeschooling community?
Only God.
I know. So tell me about your story with Gene in terms of how you got interested in homeschooling and how you got started.
Well, I was not interested in homeschooling at all. We had our oldest 2 in elementary school, and we lived at the time in Meridian, Mississippi. And you know how the Lord does, how He reveals things so gently to you. In our neighborhood, we had a handful of homeschooling families, and we had every type of homeschooling family. We had the traditional textbook family. We had the family that was all literature-based. We had the family that was very hands-on. We had the family, I'm not sure what they did in their homeschooling. and the Lord began to build a vision in my heart, because we used to move almost every year. And the kids did great in elementary school, but it was hard. It was hard on our family to move, and almost yearly for a season, almost a decade. And so the vision of homeschooling felt like it would be a big family builder, and that it would ride the wave of these moves a little more smoothly.
What time frame was that, Janie? What years are we talking about here?
The ages of the kids?
No, or like 2000 or 1999?
2000. Okay. It was 2000 that we started homeschooling and moved. That was the year we moved to Savannah, Georgia.
Okay. All right. So So Gene's job, he was just getting transferred all the time.
Yes.
Okay.
Mergered and acquisitioned all over.
And so we have a lot of military families who deal with that same thing. And it makes homeschooling such a great choice. Okay, so I totally interrupted you, and you were talking about the kids being in middle school.
They weren't that old. They were in elementary school, and we were looking at another move coming, and then we just took the leap. And my husband was so awesome. He said, we'll go ahead and get a house by what is rated the best elementary school in this new state in Georgia that we're moving to. And I was like, man, I love that guy. He's got my back. Just in case this whole homeschooling gig didn't work out.
Right.
So, but we got started in 2000 and never looked back. It just became the way that our family rolled, how we operated as family.
So how did your children do after having been in school for a little while that first year?
They did great, actually. When we moved to Savannah, we were so blessed by that homeschool support group. We had a community to move straight into. And getting connected as homeschoolers is key. I think it's key to survival.
Yes.
You can do it on your own, but boy, that's the hard road to hoe.
I love that you say it's the key to survival. We've been talking about that on the podcast this year, that the 2024 word of the year is community.
Okay.
And when you can tap into that community of moms with experience and kids the same ages of your kids, and then people who need your help, it's really amazing.
It is a huge blessing. One of my friends used to always say I learned everything I ever needed to know about homeschooling at Park Day with the other moms and the other kids playing.
That is great. That is great. So you got to Savannah and you immediately got involved in this support group?
Yes.
So it wasn't a traditional co-op. So, back years ago, we had more support groups than we had co-ops. And now we have a lot more co-ops than we have support groups. But I think support groups are so great because of their informal structure, but the support they not only give the kids, but the moms.
Absolutely. So this support group was so special, and the wise, godly ladies who founded it set it up beautifully with their bylaws and really what its purpose was. And so it made it really easy for those who came along later to take the torch and move forward with it. But this support group would have things like monthly mom meetings and skate days for the families and park days. And we had several military bases in Savannah. And so the Lord would bring people in with gifts and talents, and we would start something in chess club or drama club. And we had an American Heritage Girls troop and a Trail Life troop and things like that, it really kept us connected on a weekly basis.
No, that's so great. So how important do you I know that was important for you, especially as a new homeschool mom, but how important was that for your kids?
It was their community. So we had church community, but those were their like-minded friends, just like their moms were my like-minded friends. We were a set of believers, and we were pursuing this strange thing called homeschooling, and we were doing it together. And therein was the blessing. Therein was the community. And it was just as important. My kids are still, my 34-year-old daughter, this weekend, a handful of her friends from that community are driving up to see her in Atlanta from Savannah, and they're having a slumber party. And they're all young moms. It's adorable.
Isn't that great? That is so great when you see those things happen and you see the fruit and results of all of that. So as you got into homeschooling, so I know why you started. What kept you homeschooling? It really was
the Lord's calling on our family and the sweet community of just our little group of 7. That's what kept us in it. So it just was, it was such a sweet way to raise a family together. I have 5 kids. They're 16 years apart. And there was a closeness there that schooling in a different way wouldn't have afforded our family just because of the sheer age range. So it just really, and it became, as we got more and more involved in that homeschooling community, and, you know, you're brand new homeschooling mom and you volunteer to do this one little thing, and then you catch the vision for another thing, and it just grew and grew and grew. And it just became, our whole family served the homeschooling community. And so it was just our role, our position, and our calling.
That is so special. Now, what about high school? When your kids got to the high school years, did you ever have any qualms about that? Or what gave you the confidence to continue homeschooling in high school? Because that's when a lot of people quit.
I kept reading. Chris and Ellen Davis, I used to read their catalogs all the time. And then they kind of put their catalogs into books. I Saw the Angel in the Marble, I think, is one of their books. And they in those early days of homeschooling, they were like, of course you can do this. Now you may need to reach out into the community and tap into some sources, resources, local community college for maybe a high school credit for science or different things like that. And then co-ops started coming along. We never co-opted until we moved up here. But they said, Ellen and Chris, and David and Shirley Quine. There were so many, Bob and Tina Farewell. There were so many precious souls who kept saying you could do this. And they said it enough that I began to believe them. And they were doing it. And so seeing that legacy that they were able to create and trusting that the Lord has your family. The Lord has your family. And his plans and intentions for them are going to be carried out. And so it takes a lot of faith to homeschool, right? Just to live, but and parent. But you just have to, at some point, you trust the Lord, and that he's going to do what he says he's going to do for your family, and that he loves your children even more than you do. So that, and tapping into local resources was huge too. We had biology camp one year at my house, and I opened my home, and another mother who was a biology whiz came over, and all the kids and parents ordered their dissection kits and their frogs and all the stuff. And she came over every day for a week, and the kids who had studied and read their biology books all year long came over, and they had a week-long intensive of knocking in all their labs together. So that kind of community is huge. And I think co-ops fill that role a lot today.
Yes, I think so too. And that's just a great source of encouragement, and not having something to fall back on, but having something to support you.
Yes, 100%.
So one of the things that has always amazed me about you, Janie, is the way you don't hesitate to start something when your kids need something or somebody else needs something. So tell us about the first group you started. Do you even remember that?
The first co-op here in the upstate? Yes.
Or any co-op, anything. And I know you started a sports program.
Oh, we did. Back in Savannah, we started. It started with smaller things within the homeschool support group, like starting that little American Heritage Girl troop. And we had a robust, back in the day, Cub Scout and Boy Scout troop. But when they went in a direction that went against our faith-based homeschool group's statement of faith, we had to go in another direction. And so I was one of the millions of people probably calling American Heritage Girls saying, you guys need to start American Heritage Boys. We need something going on here. And then Trail Life was birthed separately and was such a great organization.
What do you say to a mom who wants to start something like Heritage Girls or a music club or a mom support group, but she's really intimidated by that process of starting things? Can you give that mom some practical advice about how to start something new?
Find a couple of friends who are interested. Ask around. See if there's interest in whatever it is you would like to see happen for your child. but then just fumble your way through it. Just don't feel like you have to have it all figured out to get us started. Just start and take those steps.
That's great advice. Yes, that is great advice. So did you, when you started Heritage Girls, did you have other moms who were helping you with?
I had a couple of other moms who really were looking for something for their children who were about the same age as my daughter, and they were willing to serve. And also you have to be able, you have to make the ask. Hey, would you be interested? I think you'd be great. I think I can see you serving in this role. Do you think you can see you serving in this role? And we both need to pray about it. And so I ask a lot. I'll ask a lot of people a lot of questions.
Did you just pick up the phone one day, get on the website? How did you make that initial connection and think, I can do this?
Absolutely. They were pretty new at the time, new to my knowledge. And in 2000, I think it was 2017 that we started that troop down, the American Heritage Girls troop down in Savannah. And they had information on their website, and they have office staff, and they'll help walk you through that. And it's the same way with Trail Life, but it's pretty internet based right now. Starting some of these organizations. I've never started an NCFCA speech and debate club, but I feel like that operates the same way. I know Savannah has that group. I feel like a lot of things now are pretty easy to get the information online and get started,
right,
and to talk to other people in other troops or in other organizations and get information.
And, I think that's a huge help if you can talk to a mom who's done it before, because even with Heritage Girls, am I saying that right? Is that the right name?
American Heritage Girls.
Even with American Heritage Girls, I know it's got to be helpful even with all the information they give you to talk to another homeschooling mom who's done it.
Absolutely.
That is good to know. So you started American Heritage Girls, and then what was the next thing you started? When did the sports league come into play?
That is a very good question. Let me see. My now 28-year-old, this would have been, he was in middle school, and there was a little tiny private school just across the river in South Carolina that would let homeschoolers come play on their sports teams. And so 7th grade, that's what we did. After 7th grade, the principal, who was lovely, said, okay, if you want to play, you have to enroll. It's like, for 180 days a year, I'm going to have to drive this kid over there? I mean, I love this kid, but I'm like big, fat, pregnant with another kid. And it's like, there's no way. And a mom had called me, her son and my son are best friends, been in each other's weddings. And she called me and she said, Janie, this is the new rule this principal made. And I'm in Midland, Texas, visiting my parents. And I said, all right, I'm about to get on I-20 for the next 2 days, driving back to Savannah, and I'm going to be praying the whole time because I think it's time for us to start a sports league. And so we got home, and I had this brilliant idea that I brought to my husband and said, I think we should start a sports league. And he just looked at me like I had lost my mind. And I thought, I think there's an athletic apparel store in Savannah. I think I'm going to just go over there. And meanwhile, all these other moms are also praying. And so I walk into this athletic store, Thompson's athletic store in Savannah, Georgia. And I said, all right, Mr. Thompson, I think we need to start a homeschool football team. I don't know what all kind of equipment they need, but we also need a field, and we need a coach, and we just need all things. And I'll never forget, he sat back in his big old chair there and hit the store, and he looked at me, and I said, I'm serious. We need to get this party started. He said, I can tell you're serious. And he looked around his desk, and he reached for his phone. He hollered at somebody in the store. He said, who's that old homeschool dad that lives in such and such community? You think he'd coach football? And I thought, as soon as I got that response, it was like, okay, that's the Lord just saying, keep on going, keep pushing forward. And I'd come home every day and be like, honey, what do you think about this dad being the football coach? No. Honey, what about that dad? No. What about this guy? No. I finally said, you have to be the coach then. He's like, I know. So he was our athletic director and our head football coach. And we immediately had a handful of other amazing parents who were willing to step in and coach in that arena and coach in this arena and offer their church gym. And it was a struggle in the beginning, but now it's it just was a need. And the Lord blessed, and he brought all the right people. And still today, that organization's got kids playing sports and getting to go to colleges and on scholarships. And it's so much fun to see.
There are moms and dads out there today listening that need to start something for their children. They might not realize it yet, but God's going to tap them on the shoulder and say, you need to do this. So I want to give them a few steps. So first thing is, you see a need in your child and you start praying about it. You need to start something. And the immediate response is, I don't want to start something.
No, absolutely.
So then you need to be open to the Lord's guidance and to what your heart is telling you, and not be afraid and intimidated. Because if you heard Janie's story, you know she didn't go in there with $100,000 to figure out how to start a sports league. Is that right, Janie? You didn't go in there with a wallet full of cash and say, I need to start this.
Yeah. Bam, let's pay for this. No, that did not happen. I think our first practice field was a lot owned by a church, but occupied by very hard red clay and a lot of ants. It was not a pretty field, but it was a place to practice. So you just have to start. You just have to start. It's like anything else.
Yes. And you know that verse that talks about don't despise the day of small beginnings? I think we need to understand that too, and that when something is small and fledgling, it doesn't mean that it's ineffective. Because even in the midst of y'all starting something, your kids were getting a place to play. And like you said, they later go on to play college sports.
Those tiny, tiny steps of faithfulness. It never ceases to amaze me how small an action you can take and what a big difference it will make. It's like, you ever watch those shows on HGTV? I used to watch them years ago when they would just go in and fix up someone's bathroom. And these people would just be bawling because it made such a big difference in their life and the life of their family. And I would look at that and think, I mean, it's great, but it doesn't seem earth-shattering. But it is those tiny, tiny steps that can make such a big, big difference. And then the Lord, if he's called it into being, he's gonna bless it. He's gonna open doors. He's gonna bring the people.
You know, it reminds me of that verse in Psalms where it talks about, I can't remember, I think it's Psalm maybe 127, where it says, unless the Lord watches the city, the watchman labors in vain, or watches in vain. Unless the Lord builds the house, those people building the house labor in vain. And so it's so nice to know that when we start a labor for the Lord, that the Lord has called us to for our children, he just provides a lot of the resources we don't know we need and that we don't have sitting in our bank account or within ourselves. And so, you know, I guess my message to you parents today is don't be afraid of this. Really embrace the opportunities to do something that will really benefit your kids. And as it benefits your kids, it will benefit other kids. Okay, so you prayed, you found friends. In the matter of the sports league, you did something practical like going to an athletic store. You know, that's brilliant. And then you had moms praying. And then you had to do practical things like you had to recruit coaches. You had to recruit moms who were willing to help at practice. And but I'm assuming that just all began to fall in place with a lot of work and effort on your part.
It wasn't just my husband and I wanting this thing for our family. There were other families who were wanting this opportunity for their children too. And so it just is, and these were homeschooling parents, and so they already knew about providing opportunities for their kids. You know, it starts small. It starts when you're just brand new homeschooling and you're setting up a reading basket full of books that your children can peruse in your home, or you're purchasing some little science kits that they can use at home. So you start at, with these little, when your children are young, you start with these smaller steps and providing these little opportunities in your home. And this is just an outgrowth of those kinds of steps that you're making from the very beginning.
Thank you so much for joining us today for part 1 of this episode. Make sure you tune in next week for the conclusion of this conversation. As always, you can find me at zantyler.com, where you can listen to and watch past episodes of the podcast, and where you can also send us your questions. May God continue to bless you and your family in this homeschooling journey. Until next time, bye.